The number one thing we need to do if we actually want to cut down on crime from a criminal defense attorney, let's go. My name is Veronica. I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Los Angeles, and I help people who have been arrested put their criminal cases behind them so that they can enjoy their lives and their freedom. And again, this video is about the number one thing that we need to do if we want to cut down on crime. Go ahead, do it. Put me out of a job. This is a gaping hole in our system and it drives me crazy. Okay, so I'm going to give you a case example first, and I have so many of them. But let's say we have an 18-year-old kid with no criminal history who owns a legal gun. Do with that what you will. Owns a legal gun, had gone to the shooting range, had an abusive childhood, really difficult upbringing, has the gun with him in his vehicle, and on his way home encounters someone who looks very scary, looks like a gang member, and he's a Hispanic young man in Los Angeles who's been asked, where are you from, been pressured to be in a gang his entire life, been threatened, bullied by gang members his entire life, but he's not a gang member. Roll down his window. He freaks out, grabs his gun, and shoots 5 rounds at that car. Doesn't hit the guy. What should become of this young man? And before you answer that question, he gets a mental health evaluation that his attorney gets for him. And it's found that he had a severely abusive childhood, has severe PTSD that was never ever treated. What should become of this fellow? I mean, we don't want people just shooting at other cars. I mean, that's terrifying, right? That's something that if you're in LA, you're a driver, you know, people sometimes get a little road ragey. Sometimes you're at least tempted to give the finger. Please don't. I've stopped doing that. Stopped doing it a while ago because people are fucking nuts, and now I really know it. We don't want people shooting at other cars. That's horrible. But at the same time, if we send this guy to prison, okay, we have a scared 18-year-old young Hispanic man, we're going to send him to prison somewhere upstate. What is going to become of him in there? What are we going to get when he comes out, right? And I'm not even talking about fairness or justice or like even helping this guy. We as a society, we have this guy who, like, yeah, he did something bad and he's freaked out, he's scared, he freaked out then, you have a diagnosis, PTSD, very severe, very abusive and traumatic childhood. If we send him to prison right now, he's not getting any treatment before. There's no treatment in prison. Don't listen to anything that any of the Department of Corrections say. There is not treatment in prison. There's nothing useful going on there. He gets out. What are we going to get on the other side? Right? I mean, he's going to join a gang. He's going to become more traumatized. He's not going to have any kind of treatment for his PTSD. Like, he will come out an actual criminal. I mean, he is now. Yes, he did something bad. He freaked out. He did something bad. He did something that as soon as he was done doing it, froze and regretted. But as a society, if we want to cut down on hardened criminals, shouldn't there be some mechanism? I'm not saying don't punish him, but shouldn't there be something where he gets treatment and we also protect the public? And this is the issue I've run into on many cases and there was another case where eventually I was able to convince the DA to not send my client to prison at all, because I was able to reassure him that my client was getting sufficient treatment to not be a danger to the public. That guy was a schizophrenic, untreated. Onset, he left his family's suburban home, was gone for a long time, was homeless, living on the streets, and attacked an elderly woman, beat her, stomped her, because he was having these delusions that she was some kind of demon. It was a horrible thing, right? A horrible thing. But that guy, no criminal history, nothing, normal kid, going to school, and then he gets schizophrenia, leaves his family home, becomes homeless, freaks out, and attacks someone. Do we want to send him to prison? What kind of monster are we going to get when he gets out? And the problem that the DA kept bringing up to me in that case was, well, look, in California, there are no secure mental facilities. If you, or in Los Angeles at least, if you get found not guilty by reason of insanity, there are places that they will send you, but there's no mechanism for having someone basically getting treatment. You would have to plead not guilty by reason of insanity and probably end up spending the rest of your life in basically prison. But there's no sort of mechanism to make sure that these people get the help that they need in a good facility that is not going to make it even worse, and also keep the public safe. There's nothing. So what the state of California is doing, or at least in Los Angeles, what Los Angeles is doing is they're, for the most part, so guy number one, he is going to go to prison. He's not going to get any treatment. And it's like, at least what they should do is when he gets out, as a condition of his parole, he should go to some sort of mental health facility. Not a halfway house, but some kind of mental health facility at the very least. Because what's he going to be like at that point? Guy number two ended up getting probation, which was, it was a huge fight over a long period of time, but ultimately he got probation with mental health requirement. But really what we need to do is look at what are we creating here. When it's a first-time offender and something happens and we have a mental health reason, or we have a drug reason, we have something that potentially could be fixed. I am not saying let them off the hook. I am not saying let them go to therapy. But what I am saying is that if you do want to send them to jail or prison or something, at least, and the law is not written like this, parole is bullshit, at least when they get out, there should be some kind of requirement, or part of their sentence should be at a secure mental health facility. We need to have more secure mental health facilities where people can go. We need these secure mental health facilities where we can make sure that people actually get help, and that on the other side, they're not going to be even worse. This is a huge thing. We are incarcerating so many people that have mental health problems because, yes, they do something bad, but because of their mental health problem. Sometimes they have a drug problem too, and the DAs are sometimes, they're sympathetic to mental health issues, but not to drug issues. But look, if you have a mental health condition that is untreated, you feel bad all of the time. And so especially when you are in an area where people are doing drugs, yeah, you're going to try them. Maybe they'll make you feel better. I've had a lot of clients that have bipolar disorder or depression that start doing meth. And they say, yeah, when I'm doing it, I do actually feel better, because some of the effects that they're getting from these illegal and very harmful drugs are similar to what they might get, or providing a similar effect to what they might get from the drugs that they should actually be on. And there's, I'm not even blaming the prosecution here. I'm blaming the legislature. That is who I'm blaming, because they need to come up with better laws and figure out a way that, instead of having so many people in prison who come out so much worse, that now they can't get a job, they're convicted felons. If you go to prison on any offense, you cannot ever get it expunged. So you're a felon, and you are, now you're even worse. You've been traumatized in prison. You may have joined a gang. You've learned from criminals for years. So if you're a really young man, you're 18, you're still learning. Many of us 18 to 25, that's when I went to college and law school, and I became a completely different person than I am now. And those are really incredibly important formative years. You first become an adult and you're learning how to think about things, how to think about the world. And we're just making it so much worse. So, I am not a lobbyist. I'm not ever going to probably run for any elected office, but I think that this is something important that really does need to be addressed. You know, even prosecutors are frustrated by it when they tell me, yeah, I can't just give your client probation and have them go to this inpatient facility because what if they leave? And I say, well, put an ankle monitor on them. But the thing is, the ankle monitor only tracks where they are. It doesn't like zap them or hold them in place if they leave. So if that person's a danger to the community, you know, if they haven't been treated yet or nobody's assessed that they aren't, then yeah, I mean, I get what they're saying there. You know, another thing is we can actually have decent mental health treatment in prison and jail, but to me, that might not cut it because of the horrors of prison and putting some of these, like the two guys that I mentioned, those guys were, I mean, if you're not a criminal, you're not a gang member, and you are put in prison or jail, it is going to be so traumatizing for you and so scary for you in California. So until that's fixed, even adding this to the jails and prisons is not going to be enough. Anyway, if you have a case in Los Angeles that you do need help with, feel free to give me a call. My number is down below. You can also book a consultation with me there.